The alien delegation arrived in a shimmering sphere of light, their craft a perfect amalgamation of elegance and menace. As it descended onto the sprawling plains of Earth's largest military base, the gathered human soldiers instinctively stiffened. Towering figures emerged from the craft, their sleek, metallic exoskeletons glinting in the sunlight. The delegation consisted of 5 warriors from the Zarthan Dominion, a species renowned for their brutal efficiency and unmatched combat prowess. They were said to have conquered half their galaxy before humanity had even discovered fire. Colonel Rebecca Carter, the base commander, stepped forward to greet them. Her sharp eyes took in every detail. The way their movements seemed unnervingly precise, the hum of advanced energy weapons at their sides, and the air of superiority radiating from their leader. He was taller than the rest, with a crest of bioluminescent scales along his head. "I am Commander Vecthar," he announced, his voice deep and resonant. "We are here to observe your training methods, as agreed in the terms of the Interstellar Defense Accord. Consider this an evaluation of your species' worthiness as allies." Colonel Carter maintained her composure, though the veiled insult was clear. "We welcome you, Commander Vecthar, and your delegation. I assure you, our training speaks for itself." Vecthar's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. To the Zarthan, war was a science perfected over millennia. Their recruits underwent rigorous genetic enhancements and simulations before ever stepping onto a battlefield. The concept of basic training was primitive to them, wasteful, inefficient. As the aliens followed Carter through the base, their observations mirrored their disdain. Human soldiers jogged past in tight formations, shouting chants to keep pace. Others performed monotonous drills, weapons snapping to attention on command. To the Zarthan, it seemed little more than theater, a display of discipline that paled in comparison to their advanced methods. Vecthar leaned toward one of his subordinates, a lithe warrior named Ralzek. "Their movements lack fluidity. Their bodies are fragile. What could they possibly teach us?" Ralzek's segmented eyes flicked over the humans. "Perhaps this is all a diversion, Commander. Surely their true warriors remain hidden." Their skepticism deepened when they reached the obstacle course. Soldiers crawled through mud, scaled towering walls, and leapt over flaming pits. The Zarthan watched in silence, their expressions inscrutable. To them, this was a child's game, a relic of primitive warfare. "Do you truly expect us to learn from this?" Vecthar asked Carter, his voice tinged with contempt. The colonel stopped, turning to face him with a measured stare. "Commander, you haven't seen anything yet. What you're witnessing is not just training, it's transformation. These recruits enter as civilians and leave as warriors. They're learning to endure, adapt, and overcome. That's something no simulation can teach." Her words hung in the air, challenging the Zarthan's assumptions. For the first time, Vecthar faltered, his mandibles twitching in uncertainty. As the humans prepared to demonstrate their most grueling exercises, Vecthar felt a flicker of unease. Perhaps there was more to these fragile creatures than met the eye. The Zarthan delegation stood on an elevated observation platform overlooking the training grounds. Below them, human recruits assembled in perfect rows. Their uniforms were mud-streaked, their faces set in steely determination. A whistle sounded, piercing the crisp morning air, and the soldiers sprang into motion. Commander Vecthar observed with detached curiosity, his glowing eyes narrowing as the humans hurled themselves into the first exercise, a brutal obstacle course designed to push them to their limits. The recruits sprinted forward, scaling walls slick with mud, crawling through barbed wire, and carrying heavy packs across unstable terrain. The air was filled with grunts of effort and shouted encouragement. "This chaos is their training?" Ralzek whispered, his tone incredulous. "Where is the precision? The order?" "It is a crude display," Vecthar replied, though a part of him remained unsettled. What caught his attention wasn't the humans' lack of perfection, but their relentless determination. Where one stumbled, others paused to help. When exhaustion threatened to claim them, they kept moving, faces twisted with effort but unwavering. The sight was strange to the Zarthan, who valued efficiency above all else. The recruits moved to the next phase of training, a simulated combat drill. Divided into teams, they were pitted against each other in a series of strategic skirmishes. The Zarthan delegation leaned closer, expecting to see the limits of human ability laid bare. What they witnessed instead was a chaotic brilliance. The humans' tactics were unconventional, even reckless, but undeniably effective. One recruit used the terrain to ambush opponents, while another lured adversaries into a trap. The Zarthan noted their adaptability, their willingness to deviate from planned strategies when the situation demanded it. They fight without uniformity, Ralzek observed, his voice tinged with both disdain and curiosity. Perhaps that is their strength, Vekthar muttered, almost to himself. The final exercise was the most grueling, a survival drill in an artificial wilderness. Recruits were stripped of their weapons and supplies and given a single objective: to find their way back to base within 48 hours. The Zarthan warriors watched as the humans disappeared into the dense forest, their figures swallowed by the shadows. Hours later, the first groups began to return. Some arrived wounded, but triumphant, leaning on makeshift crutches or supporting injured comrades. Others stumbled in, covered in cuts and bruises, but with an unmistakable fire in their eyes. The Zarthan could not ignore the raw resilience on display. "They are relentless," Ralzek admitted, his earlier scorn replaced by unease. Vekthar's mandibles tightened. "Resilience without purpose is nothing." Colonel Carter, who had been silently observing the Zarthan's reactions, stepped forward. "Purpose is forged in adversity, Commander. Every one of those recruits now knows their limits and how to push beyond them. Can your simulations teach that?" Her words lingered like a challenge. Vekthar turned back to the training grounds, watching the last of the recruits stumble into formation, battered but unbroken. For the first time, a seed of doubt took root in his mind. Were these humans truly fragile, or had the Zarthan underestimated something far more dangerous: their unyielding spirit? Grounds lay silent, save for the occasional crackle of distant machinery. The human recruits, battered but unbroken, had retreated to their barracks, leaving the Zarthan delegation alone with their thoughts. The air seemed heavier now, as if charged with the weight of revelation. Commander Vekthar stood at the edge of the observation platform, his glowing eyes fixed on the horizon. Behind him, Ralzek approached, his usual confidence replaced by an uncharacteristic hesitance. "They endured more than I expected," Ralzek admitted, his segmented eyes shifting uneasily. "Their methods lack refinement, but their results—" He trailed off, unwilling to finish the thought. Vekthar did not turn. "Resilience is not a strategy," he said, though his tone lacked its usual conviction. Ralzek stepped closer. "It is more than that, Commander. These humans possess something primal, a willingness to suffer, to adapt. They do not break under pressure, they grow stronger." The words hung between them like an unspoken challenge. Vekthar recalled the sight of recruits hauling their injured comrades across the finish line, their faces contorted with pain but filled with defiance. He had dismissed them as fragile, yet now he found himself questioning that judgment. "They are undisciplined," Vekthar said, more to himself than to Ralzek. "Chaotic. But chaos can be a weapon if wielded correctly." Ralzek hesitated before responding. "And if we ever face them as enemies?" The question lingered, its implications chilling. The Zarthan had conquered countless worlds through precision and overwhelming force, but the humans represented an entirely different challenge. Their unpredictability, their refusal to surrender, it defied the Zarthan's calculated approach to warfare. Colonel Carter's footsteps echoed as she ascended the platform, interrupting their thoughts. She stopped a few paces away, her arms crossed. "So, Commander, have we met your expectations?" Vekthar turned to face her, his imposing figure casting a long shadow. Your training is unconventional. It defies logic and efficiency. Yet, I cannot deny its effectiveness. Your recruits possess a resilience that is troubling. Carter's lips curled into a faint smile. Troubling? That's an interesting choice of words. It is not a compliment, Ralzek interjected, though his voice lacked its usual edge. Perhaps it should be, Carter replied. She stepped closer, her gaze steady. What you've seen here is only the beginning. Our strength isn't in our technology, or even our tactics. It's in our people. Every soldier you saw today will go to the battlefield knowing they've already survived worse. That kind of resolve isn't something you can simulate. Vektar studied her for a long moment, the glow of his eyes dimming slightly. You believe this resolve will make you invincible? No, Carter said, but it makes us dangerous. The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken truths. Vektar finally turned back to the horizon, his mandibles clicking softly. We have much to discuss with our High Council, he said. The Zarthan delegation departed shortly after, their towering figures retreating into the gleaming vessel. As the craft ascended into the sky, Vektar's mind churned with conflicting thoughts. Humanity was no longer a curiosity. They were a force to be reckoned with. And perhaps, one day, an adversary.